As a building material, polyester resins used in fiberglass construction seem to be a logical choice. They're relatively easy to handle. They're reasonably priced and offer what appears to be an acceptable working lifetime. Unfortunately, there are other important characteristics that we now know are working against the polyester structures, which lead to problems like blistering. West System brand epoxy products have been used successfully to repair and protect thousands of boats with Gelcoat blister problems. The success of our products is based on more than 20 years of experience in the formation of quality marine epoxies, coupled with extensive laboratory and field testing. We created a number of vigorous environments to produce blisters. One of the fundamental things determined from the testing is that blister development is directly related to moisture in the laminate. In this test, we subject coupons from existing fiberglass boats to an environment that accelerates blister development. With our ability to produce Gelcoat blisters consistently at an accelerated rate, we can better understand the cause of blisters and measure the effectiveness of repair techniques and materials. In another test, called moisture exclusion effectiveness, various coatings are applied to samples. Then their weight and moisture take-up are measured. With this information, we're able to evaluate the effectiveness of coatings. Other variables that affect the formation of blisters include the type of resin used in hull construction, manufacturing quality control, and the environment where your boat is used. Production fiberglass hulls are built in a female mold, where the hull is built from the outside in. First, a release agent is applied to the mold. Then, Gelcoat is sprayed on top, about 18 mils or 450 microns thick. Gelcoat forms the hull's outer armor and color. A layer of randomly oriented glass fibers, matte, is laid onto the Gelcoat. Then the hull laminate is applied. The actual laminate is typically multiple layers of glass fibers bonded together with polyester resin. During the layup process, it is almost impossible to prevent voids. How many will depend upon the manufacturer's quality control practices. Although the Gelcoat is intended to be a waterproof barrier, it will allow moisture to pass through it. Osmosis is the natural tendency of a fluid, such as water, to pass through a semi-permeable membrane. In this instance, the Gelcoat, to equalize the water concentrations on both sides of the membrane. The moisture reacts with the water-soluble materials remaining within the laminate from the curing process, and this reaction process is called hydrolysis. The result is a pocket containing acids applying pressure on the Gelcoat surface. Something has to give, so blisters develop. Elevated temperature accelerates this process. So, boats in warm water may experience greater blistering problems than those in cold water. If something isn't done to repair the blister damage and to eliminate the cause, more serious damage can result. Right after a boat is removed from the water is the best time to determine the degree of blister development. A technique that works very well is to lightly sand the hull bottom with 80 grit sandpaper. A light abrasion such as this will knock the tops off any high points that might exist. This will highlight blisters immediately, and you can determine the extent of blisters and their size. Damage may range from a few large, isolated blisters to an entire hull peppered with thousands of imperfections. If the blisters are limited and their size is about 3/8 inch or about 10 millimeters in diameter, a countersink bit is a good tool to use. Its beveled shape opens the blister, prevents the drill from going too deep, and increases the bonding area you'll need later. If there are more blisters, about an area coverage of 10%, then you must use more aggressive methods to remove the Gelcoat. There are 3 techniques you could use: grinding, sandblasting, or peeling. Grinding is favorable because the equipment is easy to get. However, with this method, it's difficult to remove the Gelcoat layer and a lot of dust is generated. However, a number of devices are available that capture the debris generated from grinding. When grinding, it's best to use sharp, coarse grit, about 36 grit, to reduce the tendency to burnish the surface or to generate excessive heat that can damage the laminate. One of the advantages of the grinding is that you can proceed in levels, monitoring the moisture content the deeper you go. Sandblasting is another method commonly used to remove the gel coat. We recommend medium grit Black Beauty slag blasting material. Similar materials are available in other parts of the world. If you use silica sand, it could become embedded in the laminate and acts as a contaminant. If you use sandblasting to remove gel coat, use a two-step method. First, lightly blast the anti-fouling paint off. If you attempt to blast anti-fouling paint and gel coat at once, you'll see the pigment fly away. But small particles of copper from the paint will embed in the laminate and act as a contaminant, creating bonding problems later. So after lightly removing the anti-fouling paint, blast the gel coat. This will open any hidden voids. Another method of removing gel coat is with a gel coat peeler. There are several versions of this device, such as the Marine Shaver or the Bubble Buster. All are intended to remove a controlled amount of gel coat and adjoining mat, leaving a fair surface. Drying the whole laminate is a critical step for successful repair. Monitor the moisture content with a moisture meter such as the one shown here. Moisture meter readings yield a general trend, not necessarily an accurate representation of the actual moisture content. They can also easily give inaccurate readings when used over some anti-fouling paints and in areas of bulkheads or water tanks. Even an increased thickness of laminate may cause a change in the reading, while not necessarily being a moisture content issue. It's essential to write the measured moisture reading and the date at each measured location with a felt-tipped pen. Use this as a reference for the trend you observe. For a good backup device, tape 6 mil or 150 micron thick plastic to several locations on the hull with vinyl tape. If the hull is drying relative to ambient humidity, you'll observe condensation on the plastic. After the hull has reached a low moisture reading, you must steam clean or flush it with hot water. Let the hull stand for a day or two, then wash again. Repeat this 3 or 4 times, monitoring the moisture content. To accelerate drying, provide adequate ventilation within the boat. Remove items that hold moisture, such as cushions, lines, and sails. Keep a fan running inside the boat. Tent the hull with 1 layer of 6 mil or 150 micron thick plastic. Use 833 sealant to attach the plastic. Duct tape or masking tape will leave adhesive behind that's nearly impossible to remove. Cover the ground, then weight the bottom of the plastic to seal the tent. Fans, heaters, and dehumidifiers promote aggressive drying of the laminate. That could reduce drying time from months to weeks. The goal is to get the hull to a point where drying ceases, or when you get consistently low moisture meter readings below 3%. Now you can begin the repair procedure. The following techniques can also be used on new boats for prevention of Gelcoat blister development. Tape the waterline of the hull with vinyl tape, such as electrician's tape. Electrician's tape is easy to remove from fiberglass, and epoxy should not penetrate through it. Mix small batches of West System 105 resin and 205 fast or 206 slow hardener, about 8 ounces or 225 grams, which is 7 pump strokes of resin and 7 pump strokes of hardener. Do not use additive in the first coat of epoxy. If ambient temperature is above 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 centigrade, use the 209 tropical hardener. In very warm conditions, a handy device is a cooling box made of foam and glued together with epoxy and 410 microlite. Place ice in the box. Put a plastic roller pan on top. Don't use a metal pan, otherwise you may have moisture contamination via condensation. Roll on the resin and hardener mixture with an 800 urethane roller, creating a thin, even film. When the primary coating is still tacky, use 407 low-density filler to fill low spots and opened blister cavities. Try to fill flush to reduce the amount of sanding required. Allow the fairing compound to cure overnight, then sand flush. It's important to get this layer as fair as possible. If some low areas exist, fill again with the 407 mixture. Within 24 hours of the final sanding, you should begin applying the second coat of epoxy mixture. In the second coat, combine 7 pump strokes of resin and 7 pump strokes of hardener. Then add 3 tablespoons, which is about 60 grams, of 422 barrier coating additive. The 422 barrier coat additive improves moisture resistance. It also adds color to the epoxy, so it aids as a visual guide for applying even coats. Apply a thin, even layer of epoxy. Begin coating the bow and work your way around the boat. Brush out with a foam roller-modified brush to remove roller marks and air bubbles. Drag roller brush horizontally. When just dry to the touch, apply the next coat. Alternate to vertical brushouts. It's crucial not to apply too much epoxy at once, or the material will sag. If you work with small, fresh mixtures, application will be easier, and you'll be able to apply thin, even coats. Applying in this manner, coating thickness is on the order of 3 to 4 mils thick, about 90 microns per coat. The goal is to apply about 22 mils, nearly 600 microns total, so 6 coats are recommended. If you're unable to apply all of the coats in one day, allow the last coat to cure thoroughly. The following day, before applying the next coat of epoxy, remove any amine blush with water and an abrasive pad. When the surface dries, it should be a dull matte finish. If possible, use adjustable boat stands to support your boat. This way you can move bunk pads when you need to work on the areas they cover. If both stand supports are not available, make arrangements so the boat can be hung in a travel lift over the weekend. 425 copper may be used as an additive in the last coat of epoxy. Add to your 7 strokes of epoxy 3 tablespoons or 190 grams of 425. 425 serves as a backup anti-fouling system to be used in conjunction with your anti-fouling paint. So if your anti-fouling paint wears away with cleaning or loses effectiveness with time, the 425 will protect your hull from rapid marine growth. Allow the final coat of epoxy to cure for at least 24 hours. Whether your final coat is 422 or 425, wash the surface with clean water to remove amine blush and then lightly wet sand the surface smooth. Let it dry. No shiny spots should exist. Apply a quality marine-grade anti-fouling paint. We suggest that you check to see what anti-fouling paint works most effectively in your area and use that brand. Immediately after applying the anti-fouling paint, remove the tape. Now, let's review the steps to repair Gelcoat blisters. Determine the degree of blister development. Open blisters by using one of these methods: countersink bit, grinding, sandblasting, or Gelcoat peeler. If you sandblast, use medium slag and lightly blast the anti-fouling paint off prior to attempting to remove the Gelcoat. Monitor moisture content. Dry laminate. Tape waterline with vinyl tape. Fill blister cavities with low-density filler. Mix small batches of epoxy. Apply thin, even coats with an 800 foam roller. Brush out roller marks by alternating brush strokes for each layer. Apply a total of 6 coats for optimum performance. Thoroughly abrade the surface prior to applying anti-fouling paint. For detailed instructions and further information, be sure to read West System Gelcoat Blisters, Diagnosis, Repair, and Prevention Manual. It's available from all West System brand product dealers, or by mailing $2.25 to Goujon Brothers Incorporated, Post Office Box 908, Bay City, Michigan 48707, or phone 517-684-7286.